Renya is walking past an alleyway and spots Kami getting jumped. She randomly decided she's going to be living at his house. Of course, as his maid. You may be wondering how we got here. Let's rewind so we can keep all our extra chromosomes together. It's been 3 months since Renya started high school, but he's got no friends and no girlfriend. He bumps into someone familiar. Her name is Akiho. She tells him not to talk to her if he has nothing to say. Even his childhood friend hates him. She dramatically runs away. He drops his book on the floor. A girl named Maiya gets on her knees and gives him his freaky Maid book back. He starts overheating because this is probably the first time he's had contact with a woman. She thinks it looks interesting and asks if he likes maids. She's always wanted to talk to him since seeing him reading alone worries her. He apologizes for worrying her and tells him it's not wrong to do that. And Renya realizes that's the first time someone has ever told him that. She says people say she's different, but not in a good way, absent-minded or clumsy. She asks him to lend her his book when he's done reading it and leaves, already thinking their friendship is in shambles. After school, Renya is walking past an alleyway and spots Kami getting jumped because he's the main character. He jumps in on the situation. He tells them he'll call the police. The thugs tell him that Kami's parents fled, leaving a debt of 1 billion yen, even though she has nothing to do with it. Her father said he'd hand her over as payment for the debt. She tells them not to involve him. He thanks her for looking out for him, but says it will be fine. One of the thugs thinks he's being brave for a kid. He pulls out a fancy pocket watch to flex, and the thugs recognize it. It turns out he's the heir of the Niju family. The gang members are shivering their timbers. His family runs a lot of businesses. It turns out his family also has influence in organized crime. He writes a check. He asks if there are any objections. The thugs shaking say there aren't. Like the MC he is, of course, he has plot armor while they're walking home. Kami asks why he'd spend 1 billion yen. He says 1 billion doesn't mean much to him. He's just a chill guy. She tells him he heard that he comes from a wealthy family, but she didn't know they were so incredible. He lives alone now and has earned his own money. Since he's invested in the Hawk Tua meme coin, he decided to move out because his father remarried and had a stepmother and stepsister. So this manga would have been a completely different scenario. The living situation became uncomfortable. She tells him she'll repay him for what he did for her, even if it takes her a lifetime. He tells her not to worry since it's not her fault she's in this situation. Kami asks him if he said 1 billion isn't a lot to avoid making her feel uncomfortable. Renya is starting to see she's smarter than she looks. She praises and thanks him for helping her. He says, "See you at school." And the realization on her face appears. She actually has nowhere to go. Her parents are no longer here, and her house has been taken away. Renya says he'll arrange a place for her to live and thanks him once again. The only problem is getting the house immediately. He asks her if she has a friend's house to stay at, but she doesn't have any close friends. She used her charm to get what she wanted, which surprises him. She says he's also her friend, right? She asks to stay at his house. Renya asks if she's sure, realizing this gives him no benefit. I can see benefits from this. She thinks of a solution. Remembering the book she gave back earlier, she grabs his hand and she brings him to a shop. She tells him she's going to go try this on and tells him not to look. He waits there with his eyes closed. Surprisingly, he doesn't take the opportunity to peek. When she's done, she thanks him for waiting. She says since he really likes maids, she asks if he'll hire her as his personal maid. He couldn't refuse and ended up bringing Kami home. He apologizes for the mess and she says it's no problem since it's her job to clean it up. He asks if she's willing to be his maid. Since he brought her home, it means he'll hire her, right? Well, no, the MC hasn't decided yet. He tells her she can stay at the house for tonight. She was worried about having to sleep outside. As a token of her gratitude, she'll serve him in every way, including baths. For 1 billion yen, she became his. To be honest, it doesn't seem like a great investment. She knows the bath will be embarrassing, so she starts with the bed. But there's only one bed in this house. Even though the place is big, he does live alone. He tells her he'll sleep on the sofa. She says it's not okay since he's her master. What? Renya knows it isn't right for her to sleep on the sofa, so she suggests since the bed is big, they can sleep together. He questions himself if she's being serious about this right now. She asks him if he wants to be with her. He says she obviously doesn't want to share a bed with him, right? Kami says she wouldn't mind since he's a handsome guy who helped her. It tickles his pickle. Right now, he quickly changes the subject to asking if she's eaten anything. She instantly catches on to what he's trying to do. The thought of them two sleeping in the same bed makes him very nervous, so he's trying his best to avoid it entirely. She decides to cook for him. She's very certain of her cooking skills, but he's too busy doing something else. house. She thought he was doubting her and storms off to the kitchen only to trip. And, oh Jesus, I'm gonna get demonetized. He quickly looks away and asks her if she's okay, giving his hand to her. He tells her not to go through the trouble of making any food. It's completely fine. And she asks him if guys like homemade meals from a girl whilst holding his hand. It does make him happy. And seeing this makes her rush into the kitchen with enthusiasm. If she does it well, she wants him to promise that they'll share the same bed as a reward. Not giving him a chance to answer, she does it anyway. She's very persistent, which makes him worried about her. He asks her what she's planning to make. She doesn't really know, so Renya suggests ginger pork. She pushes him out of the kitchen. So he sat down in the living room and watched TV. He can't get over the fact a pretty girl is cooking in his kitchen, but he feels overwhelming anxiety every now and then. He rushes into the kitchen. And what on earth is that?
It's Master Chef, not Master Bait.
She asks him if the food is almost ready. He asks her why she's asking him that. Somehow she convinced him to eat the sewage she created. He ate it, sweating profusely in the background. He spat it into the sink, and she apologizes for making it and says it's not her fault. Maybe this one is just a failure. He finds it hard to say, but asks her again if she's good at household chores. And she apologizes and tells the truth that she gets scolded a lot at home because she's clumsy. He comforts her once again, and she quickly recovered from it. He says it's not always about skill, but what she can do, and that's where the value is. He tells her not to worry, and he'll make dinner. Kimi wanted to prove that she can be useful to him. They both made dinner and took turns in the shower. After she had finished, she thanked Renya for lending her some clothes. He said that he'll sleep on the sofa and she can sleep in his room, but she still wants to sleep in the bed with him. He hoped she had meant she'd sleep on the sofa. She came up with a list of reasons why she should be able to sleep in bed with him. In her world, apparently maids sleep in beds with their, I'm not saying that word. She thinks that he's thinking of certain suspicious things that he does at nighttime. She says surely he won't do anything right and gives her a look. He tells him that sleeping alone is scary for him, and that time he was almost kidnapped by those men before terrified her. She guilt-tripped him, saying that she'll cry if he doesn't sleep in the same bed as her. He says just for tonight. Deep down he knows he's being manipulated. She's had issues with her family. That's why she wished she could sleep next to someone like this. She was about to finish her sentence, but fell fast asleep. He has no choice now but to sleep, and he doesn't mind it being like this as long as it gives her peace. And now he can't sleep because of the nervousness he feels. He woke up for school, but felt something warm on his shoulder. Kimi got caught red-handed, and she said sorry for disturbing him, and he thought of it more as a reward, and she had that happy smile on her face. She says he sees getting a hug as a reward. He meant he was happy that she could trust him. She says next time she'll do it when he's awake. She admits it's embarrassing, but it's part of her job as a maid. Kimi asks if she can get that book that he was reading on maids. He returned it to the shelf after finishing it yesterday. He brought her to his mini library. She asks if he's read them all, but he just reads them randomly. So that doesn't mean he only reads freaky books. She tells him he doesn't have to feel embarrassed about it. He thought that she wasn't interested in those types of things. She is more interested in mysteries and sci-fi. She wanted him to lend any books he's interested in and was thinking of using that Maid book as reference for her work. Renya was confused that she could use light novels as a reference. Educational books would probably be better for her, but she only wanted it because it interested him. The Maid seemed cute to him. She wanted to know what an ideal book would be for him. He finds the book for her and gives it to her. She thanks him. It's already time for school, and she drops books on the floor. During school, he's lying on his desk in despair. He attempted to take a break at school from Kimi, but she appears right in front of him. She tells him not to react like he's seen a ghost. She whispered in his ear that they should keep their living situation a secret. She didn't want people to say they have an improper relationship and rumors to be spread around. He recalls the time he made a promise with his childhood friend, the very subtle foreshadowing. Someone places their hand on Kami's shoulder and asks what they're doing. Since they seemed close, getting up in her personal space, she says they're just acquaintances. Renya was hoping she'd say they were friends. He invited her to go have a barbecue with the football team. Yes, I said football, and pressures her to join them. Akiho knocks the back of his head and tells him to leave her alone and take the flirting elsewhere. She tells Kimi not to just stay quiet when someone makes her uncomfortable. Akiho asks if she liked him. Kimi saw that she was being pushy. She said, in that case, don't worry about the guy near you. Renya says, can I help you? And calls her by her first name. She tells him not to say her name so casually. Kimi, with this information, figures out that they are good friends. She gets flustered and says they are just childhood friends. He says, Akiho probably can't stand him. Just because they're childhood friends doesn't mean they're going to stay friends. He glazes her to the point of no return, and then he mentions that he's a pathetic loner. She says he wasn't always like that, and he has friends too. Kami steps in and says she's his friend. He apologizes to her for lying about it earlier, and Akiho keeps being mean to him. She accidentally told her a bit too much about him finding a place for her to live. Renya thought that they were supposed to keep that a secret. He tells Kami not to worry about it since it's none of her business. She also brings up that he forgets promises, and he remembered to say happy birthday to Akiho, which makes her happy strangely enough, since she did say she can't stand him. He brings up the time he gave her a hairpin for her birthday. He thought that she would have thrown it away by now, but apparently she still has it. And a few words came out of her mouth that she probably should have kept to herself. He asks her if she really does still wear the hairpin he gave her. Akiho says it doesn't have any deep meaning or anything, all while Kami just watches from the sidelines. Renya asks if she wants anything for her next birthday and invites her to go shopping with him after class because there's a dress he wants her to see. Kami has a sudden outburst purely out of jealousy, marking her territory, which pushes Akiho's buttons, so she asks if they're on a date. So she asks her if she doesn't mind going out with him.
Renya can feel the spiritual pressure between the two of these girls.
And Kami admits that it is a date. Renya turns to her confused at this whole situation. Because he's the rich, dense MC, she apologizes to him and says it's not a lie since when two people of the opposite gender go out, it's a date, and she really wanted to go out with him. She asks if it wasn't okay. He says she was fulfilling her duties as a maid, so it's okay. Akiho overheard them. After school, they went out shopping. Akiho was stalking them. It seems they were having a lot of fun, since it was a date to her anyway. He thought that if someone saw them, it would be problematic. And what if they found out they lived together? She was now caught by this realization. He asks if he's worried that she'll find out. Renya was curious on why she's asking. He was really close with her, so she thought it would bother him. Meanwhile, Akiho is starting to realize the competition she is in. He clarifies that he knows everything about her and have been living together for a long time. She asks him if having such a good childhood friend makes him happy. He mentions all the reasons why there's nothing special between them, and she asks him why he prefers to call her by her first name. He can't call her it in front of her because she doesn't like it. She thinks that Hiruka is really happy about the situation. Kami tells him her birthday is on March 3rd, and she's expecting a surprise.
Well, excuse me.
And of course, she'll celebrate his birthday. She thinks of organizing a birthday party and makes it a promise. They get back home, and Kami gets in her maid costume. She was going to do laundry. Renya tells her not to force herself and sees that he doesn't trust her. Well, telling by the meal she made before it's understandable.
It's fucking disgusting.
She admits that she's not good at housework, but she can handle simple things. Renya follows her in the laundry room. She dives into the washing machine and finds his boxers and gives them a quick sniff. Renya tells her to separate the clothes before washing them, and for some reason gets flustered when she sees her panties in the wash. She decided to leave the washing for later. Whilst he's guiding her throughout the entire thing, she falls over onto him conveniently again. She apologizes to him. He tells her to calm down after she broke down in tears about how she can't do anything right. Somehow Akiho got into his apartment. She asks them what they're doing, obviously agitated by the situation. He tells her it's a crime to break into someone's house. She shouts that she rang on the doorbell and he didn't answer, and the door was open. She told him to be careful since Kami also still lives here. He wonders if she already knows while he's trying to find a way around this. Kami confirms her suspicions, and Akiho starts losing her mind and thought they'd be dating, and asks him why he didn't tell her. She randomly decided she's going to be living at his house, of course as his maid, since she is jealous of Kamishiro, and she wonders why he didn't just get her instead.